Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MTG Sin Senpai. So for this week's episode, I have two draft decks that I'm going to go over with y'all tonight. This is from last Friday's event that I happened to run for my local shop, trying to kind of build them up from the ground up, and this was the one we did at 8:30. And then after we were done, we decided we weren't done playing Magic, and we decided to draft again at a Dennys at like midnight, something like that. So these are the two decks that I built. I do have the pulls, so these are the main decks, these are the pulls. So I'm going to go over the Dennys Draft pick first, just because I feel like the last card I'm going to reveal here is kind of a big one. It was kind of it was a nice little setup, and I like to think it was pretty fun and definitely some good cards. Some of these cards I pulled, at least the reasoning is I pulled this because it's a solid removal card regardless to if I'm removing white or not. It's amazing sideboard, and definitely a card to hate on because I was building at least this particular deck with tokens kind of in mind. The Defender tribal theme is actually a thing, and the one deck that did beat me was the heavy Defender tribal and actually got me. But I picked this one up just thinking that I might run it, or depending on if I needed the slot or not, so that's why I ran that. These are the ones I didn't run. Picked the Land War Green Widow just because this card, even though I don't think I was originally, I'm trying to remember, I think I picked this over pack 1 or pack 2. I was thinking about going Green Domain, but then as the draft went along, I decided not to go that route. But regardless, this particular card you definitely don't want to pass, just because it's a 4/3 for 3 that can be cast from the graveyard essentially for 3 again, depending. Hammerhand, I feel like this enchantment can potentially do some work, but it's a really give or take, so it's kind of 50-50. Smash to Best is a fun card. I do enjoy it a lot. The fact that it does have so much utility, and it in the sideboard whenever you would need it, the fact that you can do it for either artifact destruction, destroying a creature with Defender, or dealing 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls. I don't usually use the last mode, but the other two are pretty relevant, especially the Defender one, which in retrospect, in hindsight, I should have run this against the guy that was running the Defender deck, so totally on me for forgetting the second mode on this, which is pretty relevant. The Writhing Necromass is definitely a powerhouse in the limited, especially with the fact that you could potentially cast this for 1, 2, 3 mana, and it's a 5/5 Death Touch, which is always relevant on the board. The Land War Stalker, I usually grab it if there's nothing too much better. I mean, it's a solid 1/1 for 1, but typically this is one of the first things I will cut, I will admit, unless I'm like heavy token production or something like that. We got the Haunted Figment, just because this was a solid 2/1, and I was thinking potentially going into blue, and if I did go with blue, that Unblockable Clause is pretty neat. The Joint Exploration was another card that I decided to pick up just because if I decided to go blue, and the fact that you can let you dig in, it definitely helps. The Weathersea Treaty, I picked this up originally in my original game plan thinking I was going to go green, but as the draft continued I noticed green was getting cut off, so I decided to divert and get out of there. And then this was another card I picked up because of the green. It's a solid 2-mana 2/2 that could potentially be kicked for 3 and casted for 3 and do some value, so it's just all value picks. And then here's the actual draft deck itself, including all the budget duels that I happen to pick up. Bone Splinters is a solid black removal, especially if you have a token theme of any kind going, or a bunch of just cheap dudes. The Urborg Repossession has always just been an all-star. I've always, even when I don't have, if you notice in the original draft, I also have it there as well. This card is just amazing, and I will always splash for this, just because it's 1 mana, gain 2 life, and get a creature back, and if you happen to kick it, get 2 things back, which is pretty relevant. The Battlefly Swarm, it's always made fun battle tactics, and the fact that it's a 1/1 flyer for 1 is already good, and the fact that you can give it Death Touch until end of turn makes it even better. This Cult Conscript, I grabbed this particular one with the intent of doing the reanimation constantly. I did a lot of recursion with this. There's a couple other cards you'll see as I continue to go on, that I was able to do a sack theme and potentially gain a bunch of life, make my opponents lose life, and just get the value from just sacking the creatures. And that's another card that combos pretty well with Bone Splinters itself. And then here's the other card that actually combos with the Cult Conscript. I'll butcher this name. We'll just call it Ellis. It's a solid mana, 2 mana, 2/2 Death Touch that also has keywords. That's amazing keywords already. And then just the effects are just amazing. Splatter Goblin was a solid 2 mana, 2/1 that I decided to pick up. This one I picked up pretty early, just because I feel like when you draft Dominaria United, you really need to get the mana fix, especially for if you plan on going into multicolors of any kind. So I typically grab those a little bit early. The Benevolent Sleeper I feel like is always a solid pick. It's 2 mana 3/1 that you can potentially just cast for 3 as a Fleshbag Marauder, which with a bunch of cheap dudes, example being the Cult Conscript, you can definitely sack and do some things. And then I kind of peeked and showed this was I think this was pack 2, pick 1 if I remember correctly. And yeah, this is just an amazing card to build around, period. And regardless, like when it's limited, you always have a bunch of dudes that die. So as long as you know, that's just value. And then I had the synergies that paired with it, which is amazing. This particular card I feel like is an all-star for Black Draw. Yeah, losing 2 life is kind of, a drawback, but I think Black Draw has always had life loss. And the fact that you can cast it instant speed is just insane value. Citizen's Arrest is just a solid removal. Later on I saw that the white removal was kind of open, so I picked that up, and I believe, nope, this one I only had 1. Lagomos has always been a powerhouse, I feel, and this one combos pretty well with the Cultist as well, the Cult Conscript, because at the end of turn, whenever you sack it, before you go into pass, you can potentially pay the cost and bring that back, because that is a elemental that I believe token whenever it does die. Charismatic Vanguard is just a mana dump. Something I try and always do whenever I draft is kind of have like maybe 1, maybe 2 cards that I can potentially dump mana into, especially in the late game. That causes battle math to be very hard, and this is definitely a powerhouse to do so. Another example of mana dump. Now, unfortunately, you do have to tap them, but this also did help with the sack outlet concept. Once again, bouncing back to that Cult Conscript, it just fuels a lot of sack options, and this is one of those strong ones. And then the Captain's Call, which is just value 3 1/1 soldiers for 4, which is pretty good. All of his removal items are just strong, especially unconditional ones like this one. And this one being, if you happen to hit the condition, you gain 3 life, which is also a plus. This one I ran just because I needed to tie off a little bit my higher end, and the fact that you could potentially recur this creature as well, depending on late game, and if you had nothing else, this is something you can cast. This guy is definitely amazing in draft, especially with the Writhing Mass. I mean, it's potentially a 4 mana 7/7, which is insane. And then if you really need to fill up the graveyard, you could potentially fill up the graveyard, but more often than not, I casted this as a 4 mana 5/5, 4 mana 4/4, something like that, which is pretty strong. Phyrexian Warhorse, another creature that was just value really, and then another sack outlet to kind of work with my theme going on with this particular draft. Gyros Firenado, just solid removal I feel like in draft. At least with the Dominaria draft, I feel like you can typically get to turn 5+, and you should always have that mana, and majority of things get kind of killed off by this. Then I did have the unconditional removal earlier as well, so this was just to tie off and give me more removal. This has always been an owl star for me, and yes, going over majority of my deck, it's not the strongest domain, but you'll see at the last couple picks of why I decided to do that, and I got 2 of them, so it's definitely something that's always been strong. And then of course 2 Writhing Masses, so as you saw I had 3 of them I believe, because in the earlier picks, the ones I didn't run, I had 3 of them total. I decided to only stick with 2 just because having too many of these in your early hand doesn't really help you. And if you notice here, I had the 1 Crystal Grotto, and I had 6 of the trying to keep that in frame, of the budget dual lands, which majority of them, if you notice, the deck itself was black-white. The only one that wasn't in color was this particular one, but every single one of them had at least a relevant color of what I was already running. And then this one just helped to round off round out the domain right there. So let me go ahead and slip out the one rare that was here, or one mythic, set that to the side. I'm keeping, as you can tell in this particular draft pool, I didn't really pull many. Oh, and then there was that spider as well, so kind of set those guys to the side. But that was draft, that was the late night Dennys Draft. This is the first draft that we did last F&M. And these were side pools. I'm trying to remember. I think this was more of the later pool, and it was more of a. This was more for the kicker than it was for the actual discard effect. Me, I was looking more on the burn part. Now, typically, doing hand disruption is a valid tactic, which is something that a lot of other players will vouch and say is pretty strong. Myself personally, I don't run it too often, but with cards like this, it's just an amazing 2-for-1. This was a pretty strong 4-mana 2/2 flyer that if in limited, this is amazing. Anything else, this is kind of garbage, but it's a 4-mana 2/2 flyer is the way I look at it, and then with the added benefit of potentially being pumped. Once again, another one of these. I didn't realize I had two, so I should have put them together. This was just a 4-mana 2/3 flying that's just pretty solid. It's pretty decent. This one is, it's not removal, it's temporary removal, but this card's ridiculous. Stunning something for 3 turns is potentially locking it down for 4, so it's pretty insane. This one was a last pick, funny enough. I was kind of forced to get that one. It wasn't the land, of all things, which I guess it happens sometimes. The axe, this one's a pretty decent pump, but I actually decided to cut it in the end. The 3/2 enlister, this is a decent turtle. I think this was the last pick as well. Thrill of Possibilities I took on the off chance I really needed some card draw, which I decided not to run myself. And then this one was kind of an early pick because I was deciding to go white primarily with a splash of black, but I decided to cut it just because majority of my deck didn't really need this particular card. And I will say, this card is terrible Reanimator card. Do not run this unless you absolutely have to, but it is pretty trash. Alright, going through the deck itself, and then if you notice, there's a single card in the sleeve back there. So the single card in the sleeve is not actually in the deck, but because of the power of the card itself, I'm going to leave it there. And you know what, just to make sure I don't accidentally spoil it, I'm going to put it face down right here. That'll be the last card I reveal from the packs itself, but this was pack 2, if I remember correctly. And it was an instant take for this one, which I'll be happy to show in just a moment. So going through the picks once again, Urborg Rare Possession, that's just an amazing card. And this particular deck, primarily white, and my buddies laughed at it, but I went primarily white and I still went Domain 5 somehow. It's insane, but I pulled it off. This particular deck I went, I think 2-1, so unfortunately I didn't perform the best. And this one I did 2-1 as well. So funny enough, both of them were 2-1, so potentially they could have gone all the way, but in the end my opponents did happen to get me, so it happens. Take Up the Shield is a pretty amazing battle trick. The fact that it gives it a +1/+1 counter and makes your stuff indestructible and gives you the lifelink, it's pretty amazing, especially on bigger buffer creatures that you would want to do that. Artillery Blast is conditional removal, I feel, and in white I feel like this card's actually pretty strong. I've had a lot of instances where it actually did me a lot of work, and it actually one of my opponents was running the Llanowar, I can't remember the name of it, the 2-mana 1/3 that's a mana dork that can tap to make a land at 3/3 until end of turn. I was able to blow up one of his lands with this, which is pretty funny. Destroy Evil is an amazing card. There's so many big threats that you would want to destroy at with 4 toughness, or there are certain enchantments specifically in white that like the Leyline and Leyline Binding and a couple of I forget the names of them, I'm terrible right now, but the 4-mana one that exiles, and then you saw it in the earlier picks, the 3-mana that exiles as well. This would get rid of those as well, which is a pretty neat trick. This particular card is I like it a lot myself because I like the enlist mechanic for certain cards that have the effect of whenever they're tapped they get a bonus effect, which I have actually a couple of them in the draft. So with enlist cards, a couple of them are pretty strong. That's why I grabbed this particular Human Cleric, and there's one of the payoffs right there. Notice that it says whenever this becomes tapped, so this does not have to be attacking for you to get the scrying gain of life. In perfect example, you just enlisted into this and you get that, and you're swinging with the 3/3 vigilance every turn, getting an extra scry and a life gain, so it's pretty good value. This one, I was actually running a small soldier sub-theme, which actually did, in the long run, did help out a lot. It was pretty strong, and the fact that this makes a soldier, and it itself is a soldier, I mean, this is essentially timeless reinforcements, but on a creature. It was actually strong enough to where my opponent decided to counterspell it one game. Benno Sleeper is just another amazing card. Funny enough, it's another soldier as well, which is actually important. And in a couple cards, you'll see the card and why I decided to go the soldier sub theme. Oh, next card actually. This guy is a 2/2 that pumps all the soldiers, and I don't know if most people have paid attention to this or caught on to it, but there are a lot of cards that either are soldiers themselves or generate soldier tokens whenever they get played. So this was actually my pack one pick one. Decided to run this, and it was actually pretty solid. It actually did a lot of work, and it was actually pretty relevant because I had a bunch of soldier tokens on the board that were just a board of 2/2s instead of just 1/1s because of this, and it did make battle math a lot harder for the opponent. Setting that aside just because it's a rare. We have Raft, Weatherlight, Stalwart. This is amazing. Both card accelerator, card draw engine and board pump for your team. Just an amazing uncommon at 2 mana. Just does so much work, and definitely was a strong pull for me. The Phyrexian Espionage is pretty strong. Once again, that earlier tactic that I mentioned about hand disruption, it's a good tactic. I don't do it too often. More often than not, I would cast this just as a regular divination to just draw 2, but that extra paying 2 to make your opponent discard a card, especially if they only have like 1 or 2 cards in hand at the end of the game or late game, it does do a lot of damage to them. Stall for Time, I feel like, was an all-starter, especially when you can kick it during your opponent's turn. You essentially lock down their creature for almost 3 turns, 2 turns in total, and then on the 3rd turn they can swing back. And it's a battle trick, and it draws you a card. Pretty strong. I think, yep, I did grab 2 of those, so those were very awesome. Obviously, removal for creatures and planeswalkers, which was actually pretty relevant. One of my opponents actually had a Jaya, was able to get them out turn 4, and turn 4 on my end I just exiled it, which was pretty strong, and of course 2 of them, so this card's it's a pretty good removal. Here's another card. This card I like again with the whole enlist mechanic, and it did the soldier sub-theme that I was going with, so it did both, so it was actually pretty strong, at least in the limited deck that I was building. This guy I feel like is pretty amazing. I miscalculated. I thought this was a 2/3 because of the other Griffin that cost 4, but it's only a 2/2, so I lost it during whenever I was playing. But the fact that if you can kick this, you can use it either offensively or defensively, it's pretty neat, and definitely a pretty strong card. I actually used it in both ways. The Mesa Cavalier is a pretty solid 3 mana 2/1 flying with the ETB lifelink, or not lifelink, but gaining 2 life. And evasion in this set is just insane. Like, if you, depending on your opponent, some people just overlook flying, period. So even though this is not the best value for the mana that you put in, the fact that in the long run, depending on the opponent, sometimes they just can't deal with it. Enthralled to the Pit, I believe I've mentioned this in the past. I love my threaten effects, and the fact that this has the kicker clause to potentially remove a big threat on your opponent's side as well. It does do a lot of work. Captain's Call, once again, that soldier sub-theme that I was running with. This whenever I did play this, it was just 4 mana and make 3 2/2s. So it was pretty insane. Did absolute work. This once again was I was able to pull off the domain sub-theme because of all the dual lands I happened to pick up, and this actually did cause my opponents to focus on this a couple times, which allowed me to swing in with all my soldiers, which was kind of funny. The Griffin Protector, because of the sheer number of creature token generation and all that, this did swing in a couple times for like 5 damage, did a lot of work. Joda's Codex, especially in a domain sub-theme, even if you're not running all 5, even if you just run 4, it's in limited specifically, it's a 5 mana investment, but in the long run, especially if you and your opponent are both top decking and you have this on board, just having that advantage of getting that extra card every turn changes games. Like, the number of times I had this online, every time I pretty much won, especially whenever I got to the stalemates, I just overtook my opponents. This guy's just value because I ran a bunch of low to the ground creatures and a couple things that generated tokens, and the fact that, once again, this is a soldier, so this actually came down as a 1 mana 5/5 a lot of the time, which is pretty neat. And then at this point we have all the dual lands. Once again, I happened to grab a good handful of them, and majority of them were in white. So let's see here, the only ones that weren't were these two, which were two colors that I kind of needed in the long run. But overall, I mean, I had pretty much a majority of my deck was white, if you notice, and then I had only splashed a little bit for the other colors, and just having these in there did help a lot. I mean, I never really had issues with mana. Most games there was not a problem for me, so that was a pretty fun deck. It was unfortunate when I did lose, but you know, you can't win them all. But I'd have to say, because of this one card, I definitely won that draft. That is a foil Liliana. And what's funny enough, the guy to my left, like, oh man, we're going to pull foil Liliana from this box, and he thought it's like, oh, because I called it, it's it. Oh, no way, this is mine. I opened it. I definitely snatched this up, and I felt the need to share it with everybody because it's a group of my buddies typically whenever we do draft. It was a lot of fun, so that definitely made this draft all worth it. So going 2-1, not the worst case scenario. And then I did win a couple packs from both of them. The first event, I think I got 2. Did I go? No, I went 3rd place, so I got 1. And then the second event, I got 2nd place, so I got 2. So that's my prize packs here. Normally, because these are just draft packs, I would probably have just saved them to do more drafts. But for you guys, I'm deciding to open them on the channel. Hopefully we get something pretty neat in them as well. And if we don't, oh well, no problem. I mean, hey, that's a Sand Warrior token. That's definitely a plus. And an Evolved Sleeper. Oh wow, I forget this. These are the Japanese packs, so the packs are backwards, so the rares are in the front. So we'll just go ahead and put these to the side here. Nothing too crazy there. Kind of skim through them. We got those. Go into pack number 2. Alrighty, and then I know a lot of people, I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's that SCG convention going on in Dallas this weekend. To the people that get to go, you know, I wish you guys the best of luck. We got a Skeletal Squee in this pack, and I know there's going to be a lot of people doing the Infinity drafts as well this weekend, and then there's also the Warhammer 40k stuff coming out. So I know there's a bunch of product coming out. I do plan on maybe doing a couple drafts of Infinity, not too many, just because it's like a majority of the set, the only things I really want from it are the Shocklands, to be honest. If there's really anything that I would need outside of that, I mean, ooh, look at that. Sorry to be distracted. That was a worm token. That's the first time I've seen the worm token. It's actually pretty badass looking. Look at that thing. Dominon, what is that? A dog? Crazy. Forest. Oh look, I'm a swamp, forest swamp, and a leyline binding. That's actually pretty decent. I'm not going to complain about that particular pool. Definitely a good one. But yeah, I know I might get my hands on a collector box of Infinity just to do the, hopefully get some Shocklands that are full art and foily, but we'll have to see. Let me know what you guys want to look forward to, and for the people that recently subscribed, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Once again, I'm just throwing it out there. If I do get up to 100 subscribers, I'll definitely do a giveaway of some kind. I'll figure out how to do that and make sure to take care of my my lovely the people that support me. I forget the word. My supporters. Duh. So thank you so much again for your time, and in a near future video I do plan on opening a secret lair that I happen to get my hands on. So whenever you guys have the chance, do take the time to like, share, comment, subscribe, share with your buddies, share with your friends, get that subscriber count up to 100, and let's get this giveaway started. So thank you once again, everyone. Please oh, and I do have one code to give away. This one was a code I think I was saving, but I'm giving it to you guys. There we go. So whoever gets that particular one first gets to it, and you guys get to enjoy it. I did not unfortunately get any promo packs this particular time, and I did ask the people that did win theirs. Unfortunately, all of them kept theirs because they used them, but hey, I can't I can't force someone to give me something that they don't want to give me. I mean, it's theirs. Now, if I win them, I'll definitely be happy to open them on the channel and give it to you guys, just because I do play Arena. It's fun, but I prefer live Magic myself, to be honest. So, thank you so much again, everyone. Do look forward to the next video, and never forget, Senpai didn't notice. Good night.